debate over the topic that is blood pressure target for type 2 diabetes with diabetics with hypertension less than 130 by 80 mmHg, yes or no. So each debater will be given 10 minutes for the talk and 2 minutes for rebuttal. I would request Dr. Sushil to introduce our debaters.
Thank you. And the first debater is Dr. Gagan Priya. She is a consultant at the Department of Endocrinology at the Fortis Hospital, Mohali. And she is talking on the yes, that target should be less than 130 to 80. So over to you, Dr. Gagan Priya.
Hello. So the topic for our debate today is the blood pressure target for persons with type 2 diabetes with hypertension should be less than 130 by 80 millimeters of mercury or not. And I am today going to speak in favor of this motion. And in the next few minutes, I'll be discussing the key evidence that leads us to this decision. Now, we know hypertension is a leading factor for cardiovascular risk as well as renal comorbidities in persons with diabetes. And it drives cardiovascular risk, the risk of stroke, the congestive heart failure, renal impairment, as well as progression to end-stage renal disease. And we know now that with the revised guidelines, elevated blood pressure starts at a level of 120 to 129. So that is now considered as elevated blood pressure, not as pre-hypertension. And we also have enough data to suggest that optimal control of hypertension can reduce the risk of these complications, which means that it is very, very important to address this important comorbidity in persons with diabetes. Now, what are the gaps in our knowledge that we have? At what blood pressure to start treatment for persons with diabetes? What should be the target blood pressure for these individuals? And do we have any specific drug classes or drugs which would be preferable in the management of hypertension and diabetes? Of course, this third question we wouldn't really take up today. Now, changing guidelines have led to a bit of confusion in this regard. Previous guidelines were more or less uniform in prescribing a target of under 130 to 80 millimeters of mercury. There was no question, especially in people who had proteinuria. But later on, 2012, 13 onwards, we've had some conflicting guidelines. So JNC 7 was taking this position of 130 by 80, but JNC 8 kind of reversed this position in light of some trials. We'll discuss those. We have while the Canadian guidelines takes the 130-80 threshold, so does the WHO guidelines do the same. IDF also takes the same threshold for both the treatment as well as the target blood pressure. And the most recent American College of Cardiology AHA position statement also recommends the same goal. If we look at the American Diabetes Association, while earlier they were standing at a goal of 130-80, now they've taken a goal of 140-90, but for people at high risk, they still maintain that 130-80 is the target to be. So the real question is, what target would maximize cardiovascular and renal protection as well as would be safe? So let's look at how we got to the earlier cutoffs. A landmark study was the UKPDS blood pressure study. And this beautifully conducted study in relatively short duration of diabetes. By the time these people were enrolled into the blood pressure study, there was they were not newly diagnosed, so there was some burden of diabetes ongoing. And what was found in the UKPDS was for each 10 millimeter reduction in systolic blood pressure, there was a significant reduction in risk of any diabetes complication, of diabetes-related death, myocardial infarction, and any microvascular complication. And as you can see here in the curves, you don't see any threshold of effect here. So it's not that the effect stops at 140 and then you don't get any benefits, or whether it was for any endpoint, whether it was death related to diabetes and all-cause mortality. So the benefits are continuing through this continuum of systolic blood pressure, and the lowest risk seen was with a systolic blood pressure of 120 millimeters of mercury. If you look at the individual microvascular and macrovascular outcomes, also fatal, non-fatal MI, stroke, all microvascular endpoints, they also did well. The risk of amputations was reduced and the risk of heart failure was reduced. And we know the major determinant of systolic blood pressure elevation is arterial stiffening. It gets impaired very early in diabetes. So these individuals are benefiting to a systolic blood pressure of 120, where maximum benefits are being seen. In the same study, it was found that on-treatment diastolic blood pressure of 83 also reduced both myocardial infarction and stroke risk and microvascular risk as well. Then we have the HOT trial, or the hypertension optimal treatment trial, another beautifully conducted study of over around 18,000 plus participants. 3 diastolic blood pressure targets were taken, and this is possibly the only study which has looked at diastolic blood pressure targets very carefully, target of below 80, 85 and 90. What was seen was lowest incidence of MACE was in the less than 80 group, which finally achieved a diastolic BP of 82.6. And not surprisingly, benefits were most robust in persons who had diabetes. In fact, they had a phenomenal 51% reduction in MACE events. Another trial in diabetes type 2 was the ABCD trial, a small trial comparing to other BP trials. This was 950 persons with type 2 diabetes, followed up for over 5 years. Intensive treatment looked at a blood pressure of below 130. So the final achieved blood pressure was 128 to 75 versus moderate. That's below 140, 90. That would come up as the alternate. And what was seen was intensive control decreased all-cause mortality and myocardial infarction as well as stroke. And it significantly slowed down the progression of nephropathy. It reduced the risk of retinopathy also. And the mean renal functions remained stable throughout the trial. So there was no increased risk of renal function decline. We also have experimental evidence that at systolic blood pressures of the lower the systolic blood pressure, the less is the protein filtration from the glomerulus, and this tends to have a greater antiproteinuric effect, which reduces glomerular damage. This was reflected in the MDRD study, where lower mean arterial pressure led to better renal outcomes. And that is how CKD patients, the target of 130 by 80 started to come up in early guidelines. The ASK trial also reflected something similar, that more intensive control led to better renal outcomes in terms of even the GFR decline. But these 2 trials were not in persons with diabetes. So we have the IDNT trial with irbesartan that showed that achieving a systolic blood pressure of lower values was a strong predictor of renal outcomes. So there was a 2.2-fold increased risk when the systolic blood pressure was around 149 and above, as compared to systolic blood pressure of below 134. And progressive lowering to 120 actually improved renal outcomes and lowered mortality. Now, what led to conflicting guidelines? We have a lot of evidence being built on the ACCORD blood pressure trial. A lot of people have said that when you look at majority of trials, the achieved blood pressure was still above 130. So why are we targeting 130? Well, that's an argument that can be made, but does that mean that we should not target lower blood pressure? UKPDS has shown that it's possible. HOT study has shown that it is possible. And we'll talk about the SPRINT trial also later on, that it's possible. Some of the trials was actually studying specific pharmacological agents. They were not addressing the targets to treatment. So it was not intensive BP control versus standard BP control, but they were testing pharmacological therapies. And yes, in them the data assessment has shown that, lower targets or higher targets, we were getting similar benefits. Now, if we look at the ACCORD blood pressure arm, a closer look at that arm shows that these were around 4,700 individuals randomized to 2 blood pressure targets of less than 140 and 120, followed for a period of around 4.7 years. And you can see the difference in the final blood pressure, 136 and 119. Now, at the lower systolic blood pressure, there is undoubtedly one major benefit that pops out. Yes, the primary outcome and fatal MIs, non-fatal MIs, they don't really change with lower systolic blood pressure, but you get a 41% lower risk of stroke, both total stroke and non-fatal stroke. That is an evidence hard to ignore. If you analyze the ACCORD data, this was another publication that came up recently. the Accord data was re-looked at by, organizing these patients into those who had standard blood pressure control versus standard glycemic control, standard BP control versus intensive BP glycemic control, intensive BP with standard glycemic control, and intensive BP with intensive glycemic control. What was seen was the benefits did not appear when glycemic control was intensive. And we know Accord has shown that going to very low HbA1cs does no benefit. But if you look at the third arm, that is intensive blood pressure control with standard glycemic control, you are still seeing benefits in major cardiovascular events, reduction in the myocardial infarction, and of course, stroke is unparalleled. So that means the greater protective effect of more intense systolic BP reduction could have been masked by the lack of benefit or some harm being done by intensive glycemic control. And this is what this data showed us. If we look at all of the studies together, whether it was on target, INVEST, or SPS3, one thing strikes out very clearly: the risk of strokes is reduced substantially, in some studies as much as 40%. And there is also reduced reduction of albuminuria, proteinuria, as well as retinopathy. So these are evidences hard to ignore. As far as, one opposition that will be put against tight control is that there happens a J-shaped curve. So at lower systolic blood pressures, you stop getting the benefits. This J-shape definitely does not exist for stroke. So that's very clear that there is no J-shaping for stroke, and the benefits go down to targets of 120 and sometimes even lower. What about the J-shape for other curves? We'll just talk about it. But when it comes to Asian Indian population, for the Asian ethnicity, we have clearly seen that stroke reduction is even more relevant. There was a large Asia-Pacific cohort studies collaboration which analyzed data of over 425,000 Asians, compared it with an Australasian cohort. And what was found was there is a reduction in stroke incidence with lower systolic BP, and this relationship is steeper in Asian Indian subjects. So, and what was found was in Asian population, which was predominantly a Japanese population, there was the stroke was the leading cause of cardiovascular mortality, while in the Australasian cohort, it was ischemic heart disease. So we cannot say that stroke reduction is not relevant to our population, especially when we don't have much therapies for stroke reduction. We know anti-diabetic agents don't reduce stroke. Glycemic control doesn't reduce stroke. We do have some evidence that certain antihypertensives benefit, but what we know is systolic BP reduction definitely reduces stroke. Coming on the lines of Asians, do we have interventional data for Asians? Yes, Challenge DM study, Case-J study, both have shown that a lower systolic target in Asians was better in terms of overall outcomes. The last of all I'll talk about is the SPRINT trial, 9,000 individuals. They were not diabetic, but what we saw was a mean systolic blood pressure of 120 versus 136, had phenomenal benefits to the tune that the study was stopped early, ahead of its time, because of the benefits of lower blood pressure target. And why should we not, extrapolate the SPRINT data to our diabetes population when we know most studies have shown diabetics benefit more from the blood pressure control? What about J-shaping? Studies have shown that J-shape does not really exist for young people with diabetes. In fact, the J-shape for systolic blood pressure starts at age above 70, not below 70. And for diastolic, the soft spot is actually between 70 to 80 and not above 80. Concerns with a lower blood pressure target like organ hypoperfusion, orthostatic hypertension, dyselectrolytemia, yes, they are relevant and valid, but we should take them into the context that we have to individualize treatment and not really, say that 130/80 is not the target. A large majority of patients who are high-risk patients, diabetes, CKD, have cardiovascular disease, post-transplant, the ACC gives us this approach that we should opt for a lower target. And those people who are at more risk of side effects of drugs, we can go for a more lax target. So to summarize, trials conducted largely focus on assessing role-specific drugs. We cannot, take them to mean that they are targeting blood pressure targets. Optimal targets would vary between patients and within patients, but for a large majority of persons with diabetes, the 130/80 target holds true. So with that, I would conclude that setting goals is the first step in turning the invisible into visible. If we set targets which are too lax, we are setting our patients to failure. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for your excellent views on the blood pressure target that is less than 130/80. Now let us listen from Dr. Indra Mesnam. She is a MD, General Medicine and DEM Endocrinology. She is at the Institute of RG Kar Medical College, Karnok Hospital at the Kolkata, and she is a senior consultant endocrinologist. Her area of interest is diabetes mellitus, obesity, osteoporosis, transgender health, and thyroid. So over to you, ma'am, for your topic of that blood pressure target should be less than 130/18. You are speaking for the no.
A very warm good evening. Thank you, Dr. Patel. Thank you, Dr. Shah, and the entire organizing committee of Swasthicon 2021 to invite us to debate on this very excellent and interesting topic. Thank you, Dr. Gagan Priya, for putting in your points in favor of the motion of the House. The motion of the House is a blood pressure target for type 2 diabetes should be less than, with hypertension should be less than 130/80, and I stand against the motion. So we are aware of, we need to ask two questions. Is a blood pressure of less than 130/80 beneficial in all patients with type 2 diabetes? And is a blood pressure of less than 130/80 not associated with increased adverse effects in all, or rather most patients with type 2 diabetes? We are aware of the benefits of the good BP control, which has been highlighted by my previous speaker. In the UKPDS, the mean blood pressure was 160/94, and the achieved blood pressure in the intensive arm was 144/82 millimeters of mercury, which is higher than the target we are debating on today. And we found that achieving such a blood pressure target resulted in decrease in the diabetes-related endpoints, deaths related to diabetes, fewer strokes, retinopathy, or the worsening of visual acuity. But then we need to ask ourselves, how low do we go in patients with type 2 diabetes, and what are the evidences? If we take evidences from patients with diabetes, we have the ACCORD BP trial, where the intensive arm achieved a blood pressure of 119/64, which is lower than the target of 130/80, which is the motion of the House today. And the standard arm achieved a blood pressure of 135/70, which is more than the systolic target of 130. And it was found that decreasing the blood pressure to very low levels did not find any benefit in the primary endpoint. Yes, there was a reduction in stroke, but this was at the cost of adverse events in the form of raised creatinine, worsening of the kidney functions, and electrolyte abnormalities. The advanced specifically did not look for blood pressure target, but the intensive arm achieved a blood pressure of 136/73, that is a systolic more than 130, and the intervention reduced a composite of primary composite endpoints, as we can see here, and this benefit was seen even 6 years down the line. The hypertension optimal treatment, yes, the diastolic BP that was achieved in patients with type 2 diabetes, which found cardiovascular benefit, was less than 80, but the systolic blood pressure that was achieved was 130/140 millimeters of mercury. If we look at the serious adverse events in the ACCORD, we see that there was a greater risk of hypotension, there was a greater risk of bradycardia with bradyarrhythmia and hyperkalemia, which are important causes of morbidity and mortality. And also, there was a worsening of the serum creatinine and a greater fall of the estimated GFR to less than 30 in people who are assigned the intensive group. And so much so that the serious adverse events was 2.6 times higher in the intensive, 17-fold increase in hypotension, and 10-fold increase in hyperkalemia. And if we look at this meta-analysis, we studied the blood pressure lowering in type 2 diabetes. They took 40 trials which were judged to be of low bias, including around 100,000 participants. They tried to answer two questions. What is the blood pressure target, blood pressure when treatment should be initiated, and once initiated, what should be the target? So for the initiation of blood pressure treatment for hypertension, it was found that initiating treatment at a blood pressure of more than equal to 140 compared to less than 140 millimeter of mercury resulted in a greater reduction of mortality, CHD, cardiovascular disease, and heart failure. And regarding how much to be achieved, should it be less than 130 or more than equal to 130, it was found that there was a lower relative risk of mortality, cardiovascular disease, coronary heart disease, heart failure, and even albuminuria when the systolic blood pressure was more than equal to 130 millimeters of mercury compared to when the systolic blood pressure was less than 130. So these are the advantages of achieving a systolic blood pressure less than 140, but more than equal to 130, where we see that all the benefits are seen, except in stroke, where there is a continued benefit even when the systolic blood pressure is lowered to less than 130. Again, this study tried to see the blood pressure target in patients with type 2 diabetes. They took into account 13 randomized controlled trials, including 37,000 plus individuals. The conclusion they came to was that there is no single optimal systolic blood pressure target that can be identified in patients with type 2 diabetes or pre-diabetes. In fact, below a systolic blood pressure of 130 millimeter of mercury, there is a target organ heterogeneity in that there is a continued reduction of stroke, but an increased risk of serious adverse events without any further benefit for most other cardiovascular endpoints or outcomes. And what about the harm it causes? Not only the benefit, but what about the harm? So this is the secondary analysis of 2 randomized controlled trials, came out in the Lancet Diabetes Endocrinology 2018, where they tried to study the intensive blood pressure and its effect on incident chronic kidney disease in people with diabetes and without diabetes. So they took 2 major trials. One is a SPRINT trial, which specifically excluded people with diabetes, the ACCORD BP trial, which tested patients with diabetes. The target of the intensive in both arms was similar, where the target is a systolic of less than 120. And the interpretation was that the intensive systolic blood pressure lowering increased the risk of incident chronic kidney disease in people with diabetes and without diabetes. However, the absolute risk of incident CKD was much higher in persons with type 2 diabetes. So if we look at this is a SPRINT standard where there was lesser chance of incident chronic kidney disease compared to the SPRINT intensive. Again, the SPRINT ACCORD intensive, we see that there was a greater risk of incident kidney disease, which was much higher than the ACCORD standard, and also compared to the SPRINT intensive, telling us that type 2 diabetes patients are at a greater risk of incident chronic kidney disease when the systolic blood pressure is lowered markedly. This is because the cardiovascular disease and mortality in type 2 diabetes are different from the general population. Because we have microvascular disease to account for, we need to take into account the diabetic cardiomyopathy, which is specific for diabetes. Sudden cardiac disease is more common in type 2 diabetes, and hypoglycemia, which is a risk for cardiovascular disease mortality, is specific to diabetes, and there are non-vascular causes of death account for approximately 40% of the deaths in diabetes. Therefore, these disease processes possibly render patients with type 2 diabetes less amenable to derive a mortality benefit from the intensive blood pressure group. And therefore, findings from the non-diabetes population, for example, findings from the SPRINT, cannot be extrapolated to diabetes, however similar appearing. And therefore, evidence from patients with diabetes are to be used for guidelines in patients with diabetes. So what do the evidences tell us? That the BP levels should be, to initiate treatment in patients with type 2 diabetes, should be more than equal to 140 by 90 millimeters of mercury. The treatment goals are to be individualized, and the treatment goal in most patients with type 2 diabetes is less than 140 by 90 millimeters of mercury. We may go lower, let's say to less than 130 by 80 millimeter of mercury in the eligible patients. So who are they? Who are at a risk of stroke or albuminuria, provided they are motivated and it can be achieved safely. Because tighter targets are associated with serious adverse events in almost all the studies, and therefore the patients needs to be motivated to visit us more frequently, to monitor themselves more frequently. And it also should be remembered that individuals who are eligible for tighter targets could be the ones who are actually most susceptible to serious adverse events. Therefore, let's tailor blood pressure goals like HbA1c goals in patients with type 2 diabetes. Target BP would be less than 140/90, like in HbA1c is less than 7%, but we may try for lower targets in some who may benefit and are eligible, keeping in mind the chances of a serious adverse events. Therefore, in my opinion, a target blood pressure of less than 130/80 would be an overtreatment for most, and since it is not beneficial for most patients with diabetes, as we can see from the evidences, and also there is an increased risk of serious adverse events. Therefore, the ideal blood pressure for most type 2 diabetes is less than 140/90 millimeter of mercury. The lowering of target may be done in some eligible patients who may benefit, but with tight monitoring and extreme caution. Therefore, the blood pressure target for type 2 diabetes with hypertension less than 130/80 is a no, and these are the points I have put forward against the motion of the House. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for your inputs. And I would like to invite both the speaker for the rebuttal. That is for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Dr. Indra. I think some of the points you've made are legitimate, and we have to consider safety as well as the ability to achieve targets. But what we do know now that we have a gamut of antihypertensive drugs we did not have years back, and early combination therapies, just like in glycemic management, would work here also. I think what the carry home message should be that we can use a central fulcrum of blood pressure and individualize the blood pressure targets based on several factors, just like we do for A1C. For A1C, our central value is 7%. And for blood pressure, I think the central value for persons with diabetes should remain 130/80. And for people who can achieve this target safely, why not give them the benefits of stroke reduction, the long-term cardiovascular reduction, as has been shown in the UKPDS population, which was relatively younger people. For those who are elderly, who are frail, where the risks of side effects make much of a challenge in managing their hypertension, we can go for a more laxer goal of 140/90 or maybe even 150/80. So I think that's my take.
Thank you, Dr. Gagan Priya. You have nicely put up your point. I think we are looking at this problem similarly and also coming to more or less similar conclusions. I agree with you that we should have a fulcrum with a focal point. Maybe I would shift my focal point a little higher, that is to a systolic blood pressure, to a blood pressure target between 130/80 to 140/90 in most patients with type 2 diabetes. So I'm looking at the problem, let's say, from a different end. Probably you're looking from the other end. So the focal point for me would be higher, 130/80 to 140/90, rather than to less than 130/80. And in the eligible patients, like I have just mentioned, the ones who are at a greater risk of stroke, the ones who have, let's say, albuminuria, in those group of individuals, we may target a blood pressure of less than 130/80, but at the same time, we have to be very, very cautious because of the risk of serious adverse events, like I have mentioned before, which is much more higher in patients who may most benefit. For example, somebody at a risk of stroke may be actually at a higher risk also of the serious adverse events. So ultimately, like in patients with type 2 diabetes, with hyperglycemia, where our targets are different, where our targets is actually 7%, with individualization, I think in patients with hypertension, with diabetes, also there should be an individualized target, a target of 130/80 to 140/90, and then again individualization. So I think ultimately, I think we are agreeing more or less on similar points. Thank you.
I would like to invite Dr. Arun Saxena sir for his final comment.
Yeah, so points well taken from both the speaker, Dr. Gagan Priya and our Dr. Indira, that we should tailor-made our medicine and we should try to control the blood pressure uh, as per the individual's comorbidities and the complications. So point well taken, and it was nice presentation by both the speakers. With this, we conclude this session, and now we will move on to our next session.